गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम ओम सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. So yesterday we were seeing the important topic that the three bodies are not self. Whatever attributes of the three bodies don't exist in me. So, by that we have dismissed the idea of the three bodies in the self. So, now what is self? That is understood. It is not three bodies. Self is the substratum for all these three bodies. Now there is a problem. The problem is, the doubt is that the self is also the substratum for this. We don't know, but we have heard. We are not idiots. We have studied some. So the self also has the substratum jīva, and the Ishvara also has the substratum. Same consciousness. Self is the consciousness for the substratum for jīva and as well as Ishvara. So when this is the situation, then any fellow who has studied a little bit of Vedanta, not Vedanta, little bit of Vedanta will have this doubt definitely. Ishvara and Jīva are same? Because we are talking about this lump of salt which is melting. It will always be outside. It can never be inside. It can never become one with the ocean. It will always be. Even if it has melted, it will always be separate. And because of this fellow who is not able to understand the nature of Jīva and Ishvara, so he is going to ask this question. Now this disciple, there is a confusion in this disciple. The Guruji learns that and he says, okay, this fellow is probably confused with this aspect. So we will have to clear that aspect also. He says, jīvādbhinnaḥ pareśo'sti pareśatvaṃ kutastava ityajñajanasaṃvādo vicāraḥ kriyate'dhunā. jīvādbhinnaḥ pareśo'sti pareśatvaṃ kutastava iti ajñānādekavadbhāti vicāraḥ kriyate'dhunā. Vicāraḥ kriyate'dhunā. jīvādbhinnaḥ pareśo'sti. The Ishvara is different from Jīva. The Ishvara is different from Jīva. Tava pareśatvaṃ kutah. How can you be Ishvara? Iti ajñānādekavadbhāti. This is the dialogue of ignorant. The disciple was about to ask, then, okay, good, I didn't ask the doubt. Otherwise I would have become ignorant. Good. Because we have to understand, a person who is asking a doubt is not just idiot. There are sometimes the person who does not ask, he is also an idiot. Because he is not manifesting it. He doesn't even have the knowledge to ask doubt. That is the biggest problem. So, he says, kutah ajñānādekavadbhāti. Ajñānādekavadbhāti. This is what idiots ask. Then he kept mum and then he was thinking, oh, since the Guruji, now I didn't ask. So Guruji probably decided I am not that idiot. That is good, but there is a bad thing. I cannot clear the doubt of mine. This doubt of mine. So Guru says, okay. Vicāraḥ adhunā kriyate. We will do inquiry into it. Vicāraḥ adhunā kriyate. Adhunā vicāra kriyate. We will do an inquiry into this. How is Jīva and one or not, or what is the difference? So we will understand that. Okay. But before that, to understand the nature of Jīva and Ishvara to be one or different, we have to understand what Ishvara is, what Jīva is. Without understanding what Ishvara is and what Jīva is, even if the Jīva or Ishvara is in front of you, you will not be able to understand. There are ample of stories like this. So this devotee of Krishna or Rama, he was sitting in the forest meditating on the mantra, and Krishna appeared in front of him. He closed his eyes. He says, I don't want to see you. I want only to see the form of Rama. Idiot, I am the same person. No, even though you are same person, I don't want to see in this form. I want you to see. This is what is that molten salt. That is how they will behave. So here we have to, without understanding the definition, or sometimes the Ishvara himself will come. there are stories like this, this tantric. He was doing japa. He was doing puja for inviting the goddess. And the goddess, he told his disciple, don't let anyone inside. Okay? So, today goddess has promised she will come, so don't let anyone inside. Okay? He was standing as a gatekeeper, and the old lady with the tobacco leaves she was chewing. She came. I want to meet him. Why? No. I said I'll meet him today. I want to meet him. She says, no. Guruji said, no one can meet him today. But I have an appointment. He has an appointment. We both have to meet today. No, nothing doing. And there are instances when the God appeared in front of this devotee as a dog or as a cattle. This fellow was so infuriated that I want to meet God and these fellows are disturbing me. Shh. So these kind of things happen. So without knowing what is the definition of Ishvara, how will you differentiate this is Ishvara or not? How will you distinguish that this is Ishvara or not? So we have to understand the definition of Jīva and definition of Ishvara. Because the logician says, prameya manādhīna me siddhi manasiddhischa lakshana. That is their canon. When you have to establish something, that can be established only through the means of right knowledge, pramana. And that pramana can be established only through the lakshana definition. So, or simply put, lakshana pramanabhyam vastu siddhihi. Through the lakshana and pramana, only through the definition and the means, you can establish an object. Not through any other way. If you want to establish something, you have to have the definition, you have to have the means. So, what is the definition of Jīva? What is Jīva? First we have to understand that. So, for that he is saying, adhiṣṭhānaṃ cidābhāsah buddhiretattrayaṃ yadā ajñānādekavadbhāti jīva ityucyate tadā adhiṣṭhānaṃ cidābhāsah buddhiretattrayaṃ yadā ajñānādekavadbhāti jīva ityucyate tadā adhiṣṭhānaṃ, the substratum. We call it kutastha. Here also he will use the kutastha in later shloka. Kutastha, the substratum. Kutastha is a fancy name for the same self. Don't be just carried away by this name. Oh, Kutastha, that is Brahman, this is Kutastha, there is a duality. There is no duality. Kutastha is a Brahman. Brahman is Kutastha. Kuta means like an anvil. Like the ironsmith has a anvil, a base in which he keeps the hot iron and beats it. That which does not change, that which does not move, that is what is called as kuta. If that is going to move, then there is no point in keeping anything on top of it. See, if I am keeping this glass on top of the table, but if I want to keep this glass on the sofa, I will be little worried. Because this is not stable. You won't place anything which is not stable. You cannot use anything that is not stable as a substratum. So the substratum we are using is kuta, changeless. Adhiṣṭhāna, that is the substratum. Okay? Now, so adhiṣṭhānaṃ. Then in the order, normally people cidābhāso they will take. No, that cidābhāso comes later. In adhiṣṭhānaṃ, you are superimposing the intellect. The first superimposition on the adhiṣṭhāna, the substratum, kutastha, is intellect. Buddhi. In that buddhi, there is a reflection. That is why I use that makeup glass. So the box with that makeup glass. So in that box is kutastha, the substratum. When you open it, you have the mirror inside it. Now, when you keep the box closed, that mirror is going to reflect the box. That mirror is going to reflect the box, right? So, box, mirror and the reflection of mirror in the reflection of box in the mirror. Box, mirror and the reflection of box. These three things, this is the example. Now here, adhiṣṭhānaṃ, kutastha, the mirror is a buddhi, intellect. And the reflection is a cidābhāso. Ābhāsa. Ābhāsa means ābhāsa is a shadow existence. Ābhāsa means as though existence. So, chid means consciousness. Shadow existence or as though existence of consciousness. Because the reflection cannot be accepted to be real. Nowhere we accept the reflection to be real. That is why it is called as cidābhāso, shadow existence. Though it may, see, like we have sun, we have a mirror and we have the reflection of that sun through the mirror in the room. If you want to illuminate the room, you have to use this mirror. Without the mirror you cannot illuminate the room. Just mirror is not enough. You need sun also. Just sun and mirror is not enough. You have to redirect the light through that mirror inside the room. These three coordinated will illumine the room. Right? That is the example. Remember that example also. So, he says, the sun is the cidābhāso, chaitanya, kutastha. Sun is the kutastha. The mirror is the buddhi. And the reflection of the sun in the mirror, the sun rays through the mirror is the cidābhāso. Okay? Sun, mirror, reflection. Kutastha, buddhi, cidābhāso. Now, some people, they want to accept, instead of buddhi, we have been studying jīva means avidyāvacchina chaitanya. We have been repeatedly studying this. Some people accept it as avidya. When you say avidya or buddhi, it does not really matter actually. Karana, karanya, ananta is what our philosophy is. We don't differentiate between the cause and effect, because cause and effect are in reality not true, because the effect is not true. When I say buddhi, it is just for the sake of, because ajñāna, ignorance, the jīva is ignorance. You don't have to have all these confusions. That is why we say ignorance. Otherwise, people will go stick to this and they'll say, oh, ignorance is not in sleep, therefore ignorance is not in sleep. So what? So what? Oh, then your jīva is absent there. Okay. Do you see your existence? No. You reconsider your experience because of ignorance. So, ignorance is which is what exists everywhere. Even through your intellect. Whatever knowledge you gain through your intellect, that is also ignorance. Because other than knowledge, other than self, nothing is knowledge. Everything is ignorance. So what? So, he says, okay, now, adhiṣṭhānaṃ, buddhi and cidābhāso. Etatrayaṃ yadā ajñānādekavadbhāti tadā jīvaḥ iti ucyate. All these three, when they shine due to ignorance, then they are called as a jīva. Wait. Ekavadbhāti, ajñānādekavadbhāti, they shine because of ignorance. Oh, you mean if I am going to gain the knowledge of kutastha, that is jīva? No. Okay, buddhi, that is jīva? No. Okay, the reflection of consciousness in that buddhi, is that jīva? No. Then what are you talking about? Ekavata-ajñānādekavadbhāti, when they are combinedly seen as one because of ignorance. When all these three are seen as one because of ignorance, then we call it as jīva. This is a very funny thing. We condemn the materialistic philosophers, Charvaka, because Charvaka say, like the betel leaf, the betel nut and the lime, when you add all this and chew, nothing has red color. But when you chew this, it will give red color. That is exactly what we are using here. The kutastha, the buddhi and the cidābhāso, independently they are not jīva, but when they are put together, then that is jīva. Oh, then you are accepting the materialistic school? Charvaka? No. You said now, we use that example, but we don't accept Charvaka. Because Charvaka say that when the elements come together in a different fashion, they give consciousness. We are not accepting that. So, we are using that philosophy. Though there is no jivanas independently in each one of them, when they come together, they seem to be jiva. They seem to be jiva. Ekavadbhāti. Bha-prakashana. They are perceived as jiva. That's all. Why can't they individually be jiva? What is the problem? Okay, that is a good question. So we have to answer that. Adhiṣṭhānaṃ na jīvasyāt pratyekaṃ nirvikārataḥ avastutvāccidābhāso nāsti tasya cha jīvatā. Again, next shloka also. Pratyekaṃ jīvatā nāsti buddherapi jaḍatvataḥ jīva ābhāsakūṭasthabuddhitrayamato bhavet. Adhiṣṭhānaṃ na jīvaḥ syāt pratyekaṃ nirvikārataḥ avastutvāccidābhāso nāsti tasya cha jīvatā. Pratyekaṃ jīvatā nāsti buddhe api jaḍatvataḥ. Jīvaḥ ābhāsakūṭasthabuddhitrayam atah bhavet. Adhiṣṭhānaṃ nirvikārataḥ pratyekaṃ jīvaḥ nasya. That is the first thing we have taken. Adhiṣṭhānaṃ nirvikārataḥ. Adhiṣṭhānaṃ, the kutastha, is nirvikāra. Nirvikāra means changeless, transformationless. So because it is changeless, it cannot be jiva. Why? Because it is changeless. Only when it becomes jiva, only it has the potentiality to become something, it can become jiva. This cannot undergo any transmission. So how can it become jiva? Forget about partially this, that. If it undergoes transformation, then it becomes anitya. Over. Game over there. Like I said, you don't place anything on a unstable ground. You place only things on a stable ground. So it cannot be adhiṣṭhāna. If you say it is something which undergoes change, then it cannot be adhiṣṭhāna. So our adhiṣṭhāna, our substratum is changeless. Forget about the state. If it becomes jiva, then if it fully becomes jiva, then all those questions are immaterial. If it transforms, it becomes anitya. Over. So since this fellow does not undergo any transformation, it cannot be jiva. Okay, adhiṣṭhāna cannot be jiva, but what about intellect? Buddhi jaḍatvataḥ, buddhe api jaḍatvataḥ pratyekaṃ jīvatā nāsti. Even the intellect is being inert, cannot be individually jiva. Intellect being inert cannot be jiva. Kutastha being transformationless cannot be jiva. Intellect being inert cannot be jiva. So we are left with the cidābhāsa, the reflection consciousness. What is that? So he says, cidābhāsah avastu tasya cha jīvatā nāsti. Cidābhāsa, the reflection of consciousness, is also not really an object. We said it ābhāsa. Ābhāsa means seeming existence, as though existence, shadow existence. That is not an object. Like we said, the room is illumined by sun, the mirror and the light. Sun does not individually illumine the room. The mirror cannot be individually illuminating the room without the sun. And the rays which is reflected through the mirror, that also, because without sun there is no ray. That is not really an object, it is just the sun's ray which is redirected. So that is not really an object. So that also cannot illumine the room. So similarly here in the exemplified, the the substratum kutastha cannot be the jīva. The buddhi cannot be individually the jīva. And the reflection also is not an object. Reason, first, kutastha not jiva because it is transformationless. Buddhi, it undergoes transformation, but it is inert. Jiva is not. And the cidābhāso, it's not an object itself. So, these three cannot be individually called as jiva. Then how is jiva? So, it is ataha, ābhāsaha, kutastava, buddhi, ābhāsaha, trayam, jiva bhavet. Therefore, we say, what is jiva? What jiva is? Kutastha, buddhi, plus kutastha, plus buddhi, plus ābhāsa, cidābhāso. These three grouped together are called as jiva. This is called as jiva. Kutastha, buddhi, and cidābhāso. The whole group is called as jiva, not individually. Okay? No. Understood what jiva is. What is Ishvara? So he is bringing māyābhāso viśuddhātmā trayametanmaheśvaraḥ māyābhāso'pyavastutvātpratyekaṃ neśvaro bhavet purnatvat nirvikāratvat viśuddhātmā neśvaraḥ jaḍatvataḥ māyāyam īśvarattam durghatam tasmāt etātrayam mithya tadartho neśvaro bhavet. Till that we are taking. Okay? Māyā ābhāsaha viśuddhātmā trayametanmaheśvaraḥ māyābhāso'pi avastutvātpratyekaṃ neśvaro bhavet purnatvat nirvikāratvat viśuddhātmā naca īśvaraḥ jaḍatvataḥ māyāyam īśvarattam nu durghatam tasmāt etatrayam mithya tadartho na īśvaraḥ bhavet. Māyāvāsa. First, before that he is saying, okay, what Ishvara is, let us understand first. Then we'll go why individually they cannot be Ishvara. So he says, Māyā ābhāsaha viśuddhātmā etatrayametanmaheśvaraḥ. Māyā, or in that order we'll say, viśuddhātmā, the pure self, Māyā and ābhāsa. Viśuddhātmā, Māyā, ābhāsa. Earlier, kutastha, avidya, buddhi, ābhāsa. Here, instead of kutastha, Brahman or Shuddha Chaitanya is kutastha, impure Chaitanya. When you call this is pure Chaitanya, Shuddha Chaitanya means pure consciousness. Is kutastha impure consciousness? It is also pure consciousness. So, when you say kutastha, it is with reference to the jiva. When you say Shuddha Chaitanya, it is with reference to Brahman. Otherwise, there is no difference between these consciousness. We will understand that also. So, he says, kutastha, viśuddha chaitanya, buddhi, maya, ābhāsa, ābhāsa. Reflection of that consciousness. That is what he says. Viśuddhātmā, maya, ābhāsa, etatrayam. All these three is called as Maheshwara. Can individually they be Maheshwara? So he says, Ishvara viśuddhātmā ca purnatvat nirvikāratvat na Ishvara. Now he is bringing one more reason to negate that substratum is not Ishvara. Viśuddhātmā is earlier what is the reason we gave for kutastha not being Ishvara, jiva? Kutastha is why kutastha not Ishvara independently? Changeless. Kutastha is changeless. So here also he is using nirvikāratva, but he is adding purnatva. You can carry forward that there also. Since kutastha is absolute, since kutastha is changeless, since Shuddhātmā is absolute, since Shuddhātmā is changeless, it cannot be individually jiva or Ishvara. So he is adding one more reason here. Purnatvat. That also is Purna. Kutastha is also Purna. So don't have to worry about that. Okay? Now, Kutastha, Viśuddhātmā. Kutastha, Shuddhātmā. Kutastha is a pure and a changeless. Therefore, it cannot be jiva. Shuddhātmā is a pure and absolute and changeless. Absolute and changeless. Absolute and changeless. Therefore, it cannot be both. Kutastha is a absolute and changeless. Therefore, it cannot be jiva. Shuddhātmā is a absolute and changeless. Therefore, it cannot be Ishvara. Okay. Now, next. There we said buddhi. Buddhi is inert. That is why we didn't accept it to be jīva. Now he says, māyāyamnu jaḍatvataḥ īśvaratvaṃ durghatam. Since Maya is definitely inert, because trigunatvat. Maya is of triguna. It is inert. So, since Maya is inert, like buddhi is inert, buddhi cannot be jīva. Therefore, here Maya also is inert. Therefore, Maya cannot be Ishvara individually. Same reason. We are not changing the reason. Now, the third thing left is ābhāsa. Cidābhāso. Here ābhāsa. What māyābhāso we call it. There we call the ābhāsa reflection as a cidābhāso. Here we call it as māyābhāso. Okay? So, māyābhāso. Is māyābhāso Ishvara? The reflection of the consciousness in Maya. Is it Ishvara? He says, māyābhāso'pi avastutvātpratyekaṃ na Ishvara bhavet. Māyābhāso also is avastu. It's not an object. It does not have any existence really. Like the cidābhāso is avastu, that is not an object, does not have any existence, therefore it cannot be jīva. Similarly, māyābhāso also avastu, not an object, cannot have any existence, therefore it is not a Ishvara. Okay, then who is Ishvara? So he says, tasmāt etatrayam mithya. This is one thing which we have to understand. Therefore, all these three are mithya, non-real. All these three are non-real. I can understand this, but I cannot understand this. Wait. Reflection, non-real. Okay. The buddhi or maya, non-real. Okay. Kutastava, Viśuddhātmā? No. Is it non-real? No. It is real. Then he says, tasmāt etatrayam mithya. All these three are non-real. This is said in the sense, they are not real, really, individually the jīva or individually Ishvara. In that sense. Otherwise, sat, that kutastha is sat. How can it be non-real? Mithya. So, tadartha Ishvara bhavet. Since individually they don't have the characteristics to be Ishvara or jīva, they are neither Ishvara or jīva. Okay? Very good. Now, he is concluding this topic. He says, he is not concluding, he is just putting one idea there. New with another example. Iti jīveshvaro bhātah sva ajñānādekavadbhāti vastutah ghatākāṣamaṭhākāṣo mahākāṣe prakalpito evam mayi cidākāṣe jīvesho parikalpito. Iti jīveshvaro bhātah sva ajñānāt nahi vastutah ghatākāṣamaṭhākāṣo mahākāṣe prakalpito evam mayi cidākāṣe jīvesho parikalpito. See, in the other text, we saw kutastha example. Example is ghatākāṣa, pot space, jalākāṣa, water space, meghākāṣa, cloud space, and mahākāṣa, external space, great space. So, the pot space, the space that engulfs the pot is pot space, which is like kutastha. Water space is like because it is reflection, so it is the jīva. The cloud space is a bigger water space, therefore it is a Ishvara, and the great space is a Brahman. That is how we saw in that example. Now this is the old example, the example which we saw, the space into 4 and the reflection etc., kutastha etc., that is a new example based on Panchadashi. Now this example is a very old example which we have been seeing always. This room exists in space. if I put a glass here or a pot the outside, that is also going to exist in space. The space which the pot is going to take is limited. The space in which the room is going to take is bigger. That is also limited. This is smaller, that is bigger. That is the only difference. Pot space is smaller, room space is bigger. Okay. Now, I cannot carry the room from one place. Here, this house and all, it can be carried probably. But thing is, you cannot say logically, you carry the room space. But I can carry the pot space. Right? If I carry the pot space also travels along with me, along with the pot. That is just a illusion. Really, you are carrying only the pot, not the pot space, because space is everywhere. The space which engulfs the pot is not carried by you. There is space, therefore there is an unhindered movement of pot. That's all. Now, if I am going to break that pot, what happens to the space which engulfs the pot inside out? It is going to merge in the greater space. Similarly, if we break a room, not this house, so this a room, what happens? The space engulfed by the room also merges in the absolute space. So that is the example. Iti swajñānāt jīveshvaro bhātah. In this way, because of swajñāt, one's ignorance, the jiva and ishvara is shining. One's ignorance means swasvarupa jnanāt, because of the ignorance of our inherent nature. Meaning, because of the ignorance of the self. Swajñānāt means one's ignorance. Swajñānāt means the ignorance of self. Swajñānāt means ignorance of one's inherent nature. All are same. What does that mean? Swajñānāt, one's ignorance of one's self, one's nature. Meaning mūla jnana. We call it mūla jnana, the root primal ignorance. The ignorance of pot, cloth, etc. are tula jnana, secondary ignorance. This is mūla jnana. Okay? Because of the mūla jnana, because of the primary ignorance, jīveshvaro bhātah, the jiva and ishvara shine. Okay. Vastutah nahi, they don't have real existence. Because both are jiva and ishvara, both are superimposed on the consciousness. They don't have real existence. So he says, like he is giving example. Mahakashi, in a greater space, gatakasha matakasho prakalpito. The room space and pot space are imagined. There is no room space or pot space. Space, that's all. You built a room, then it becomes room space. You put a pot there, then it becomes pot space. So he says, prakalpito evam. Similarly, cidābhāso, in that absolute self, mai, who? Me, that cidābhāso, not cidābhāso somewhere. Cidābhāso, me, jīvesho parikalpito. The jiva and ishvara, the idea of jiva and ishvara are imagined. Okay? We'll see this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnāt Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādāya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.